More than 6 trillion cigarettes are smoked every year, despite smoking restrictions and anti-smoking campaigns worldwide. Now, one of the Netherlands' biggest banks has stepped up its battle against smoking and tobacco. ABN Amro says it will no longer extend credit to the tobacco industry. The Amsterdam-based bank says everybody has the right to be healthy, and providing money to tobacco producers is not in sync with its values. The bank signed a pledge with the Dutch Heart Foundation, which hopes more banks will follow suit.
ABN Amro has shown true commitment. There is a lot of support for this measure at the bank. We hope that this move will send out a signal to other banks and investment funds.
Cigarettes are the only products sold legally that kill up to half of the consumers worldwide. That's according to the Dutch Heart Foundation. And the research foundation Einspel Tabak has found that 20,000 people die of smoking-related diseases every year in the Netherlands. And 25% of the population still smokes. ABN AMRO says it recognizes smoking is the most preventable cause of disease and death in the Netherlands. And the bank's CEO says it wants to change that.
We share the Dutch Heart Foundation's aim to reduce the number of deaths and severe diseases caused by smoking.
The global tobacco industry is worth around $800 billion. Cuts to its financing are expected to impact those employed within the industry. But with more than 7 million deaths attributed to tobacco each year, ABN AMRO says it has a larger role to play than just being a lending and borrowing institution. Sourav Roy, TRT World.
Well, our editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, joins us live from Paris now. Craig, I know you've been digging around, so to speak, into how this will affect the farmers in relatively poor countries who depend on the tobacco crop.
Yeah, and what's going to happen here is in countries such as Zimbabwe and Kenya, tobacco takes up more than 50% of the lending that's channeled into agriculture. It's what the banks call an efficient value chain. So what's going to happen is if these companies can't get loans to pass on to the farmers, it's going to make it harder for the farmers to pay back their outstanding loans because they put their farms up as credit. And they're going to have to switch to other crops, crop substitution. And that's a difficult process. So what you have here are three things at work: disruption, displacement, and of course, disease.
Just a bit of jargon busting for us, Craig. The efficient value chain?
Well, banks make money off of tobacco loans. I'll give you an indication of an efficient value chain, Matthew. So far this year, the largest takeover was when British American Tobacco spent $60 billion to purchase Reynolds American. That's the largest the largest takeover deal so far in 2017. It's a big business. It's consolidating.
Is it difficult for the farmers in these countries to switch to another crop?
Well, yes, it is. It depends on a number of things. What type of land they have, what kind of loans they can get, and perhaps most important of all, how long it takes for that replacement crop to actually bear fruit. The same thing went on down in Latin America back in the 70s and 80s when they were trying to replace the coca crop with things like lemon trees or other citrus, which takes a couple of years to bear fruit, where coca crop was producing anywhere from 4 to 5 harvests a year. It made them money.
Craig, let me ask you from the bank's point of view. They would argue that they are a legitimate, legal industry. Why shouldn't they be able to apply for a loan like anybody else? They have a right to, in fact. Isn't this a case of discrimination?
No. No. A bank doesn't have to give a loan to anyone. It doesn't really have to give a reason. You can't. I know of no jurisdiction where any case like that would land on a court docket.
But as long as the company can repay its loan and it's not dealing in anything illegal, they could argue that after all, if you look at ABN AMRO's so-called ethics, they say that they don't want to lend to the tobacco industry because it is unethical and they have a wider social responsibility. Well, they lend, or certainly other banks lend to the arms industry, the porno industry. Why not the tobacco industry? Why rule them out?
Well, as the American Rifle Association will tell you, guns don't kill people, Matthew. People kill people. And people aren't getting killed by guns in the Netherlands. People are dying from smoking tobacco, cigarettes. And this is what they want to get rid of. It is a health issue. Now, one could also argue that the arms trade is a health issue. In fact, it is a health issue.
Yes, certainly.
But,
the pornographic industry can be a mental health issue, potentially. I mean, you could argue that's unethical or it's harmful to society.
Sure, you could argue that. You could argue that for any industry, but Wall Street is into the business of making money, and what this bank has obviously gauged here is that by removing these loans from the consolidating tobacco industry, they're going to save money in other areas, perhaps healthcare. Is one of them. We haven't seen their books. ABN Amro has not been very forthcoming on what this actually means. We don't even know how much capital they have lent out
Craig,
to
like you
tobacco
say, as you say, Wall Street and the banking
companies.
industry in general is all about making money. So probably this was a hard commercial decision, not an ethical one, and on balance they saw it as beneficial to their public relations, so to speak.
Yeah, and they get a big smile for doing something that's going to improve the health of the community. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. It makes a lot of sense. But as you go down the food chain, as it were, here, to the subsistence farmers in parts of the world whose lives are dependent upon the tobacco crop, that's where you're going to have the problem. So will ABN Amro now be giving these loans to farmers in places like Kenya and Zimbabwe to help them do crop substitution for their tobacco? Will they step in? We don't know, and ABN Amro hasn't been addressing this issue.
Okay, Craig Copetas in Paris, thank you very much for your contribution as ever.